Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire.
Oh, you're trying to bring me down and run me out of town. You're taking what you want, but you can't take my rhythm now. I'm walking to my own beat, just gonna be me. I'm not replicating nobody. You wanna be like me, but you can't.
This is so significant. A child's early years are very short, and they seem annoying to us as adults. But this is particularly for you if you have children and you're ministering to teenagers or loving on teenagers or trying to bring them to Jesus and their families. But your children matter the most, because people are going to be looking to see if what you're teaching them is true of you and your children. But Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me. Don't stop them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to those who are like these children." Matthew 19:14. Another verse says it this way, "Let the little children come to me and do not hinder them." So I have two boys and a little girl, and the older you get, it gets a little bit harder and you get a little bit too used to them being young and being energetic and needing you. The most important sound to my ears was when I would come home and my children would burst out the door, and I would hear the words from all three of them, one word, "Daddy, Daddy." And after a few years, that word stopped. And so I'm giving you a little information to help you realize this. Your children are going to go through many phases of life. Even when you're an older adult and they're having their own children, they're still your children. They still need to hear this. But when they're tiny, when they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, especially from 1 to about 6, they're going to go, "Daddy, he's home. Daddy, you're here." And I've seen parents just ignore their children while they're speaking to other adults. And I know some of them are thinking, well, they've got to learn to respect us and our boundaries. But when they're that tiny, they need to know that you're just as excited about them as they are about you. And I saw it the other day when a little girl went to her daddy and said, "Daddy," and he didn't look at her. He wasn't intentional. He just was preoccupied. I'm trying to tell you this: don't be preoccupied. Let your ears be tuned in to your family, and especially your young children, more than anybody else in this world. Whether you're at church or whether you're in public somewhere else or whatever, I understand discipline and they're having respect, but they need to know that you're going to look them in the eyes, and especially if you're dad and you have a little girl. Now, boys, I had to learn to do that too. It's important that we look them in the eyes. They see love. I understand discipline. We've got to discipline. That's true. But they've got to know that we love them more than we are upset with them for doing something wrong. We all do wrong things. They do wrong things that has to be disciplined so that they will learn to do things right. But they must know that we love them and that we see them. Here's the key thing, that we see them when they're around, that we'll look them in the eyes, that we'll drop everything, no matter how much pressure there is, to see their eyes and to see that they're so happy that we are there. Because there will be a day they'll remember that Dad really doesn't see me as important enough. Well, they're just young. You don't understand then. While they're just young, they're being developed and they're learning what the love of a dad, what the love of a mom is. And we're so preoccupied. And I understand the pressure is so intense. But I remember when I would have to do medias, and I chose to do that actually so we could reach thousands at certain points of the year, so that I would be seen and heard simply because I was focusing on the pictures and videos of students from high schools and middle schools. We'd bring these presentations to entire student bodies or senior classes or 8th grade graduating classes and their families and their faculty. And so it took an entire year. These were year-long projects on top of the daily grind and the weekly grind of Bible studies and student ministry meetings and all these things. But my wife made sure that I was doing these all-nighters. We'd do many all-nighters at the end of the school years to get all of these medias done. The church bought into it because they saw the impact and that our church and our student ministry was talked about all over town because we gave. We didn't ask for anything for it. Sometimes we would receive something, but we never asked. We gave. We tried to make sure every student got this. My wife would bring our 3 children to the gymnasium because we were upstairs in the media room, which is where the media room was. We were fortunate to have this beautiful facility that was a gym as well as classrooms separate from the sanctuary. And she would bring them up, and I would come out, and she would call me, and she'd say, okay, we're coming in. And I would come out to the balcony, and I'd hear them, Daddy, Daddy. And I would come down, and if I didn't get the phone call or anything, they would come up and burst in the room, and Daddy. And we would go down, and we'd go in the gym, and we'd play for a while. I'd just drop everything. It didn't matter how busy I was. It didn't matter if it was going to be all night long. I'm not patting myself on the back. There are many times I did not look my children in the eyes, and my daughter especially needed that. She especially needed that. But when they're little kids, I tried to pay as much attention to them as possible. So whether you're raising your children, which is amazing in itself, or you're ministering to students or administrators and faculties, people who are changing the lives of hundreds and thousands of students and adolescents, make sure that your child thinks that they are the most important child, that your children think that they are the most important children to you above everybody else. I didn't always do that well, and I may not have done it well enough, but I'm warning you ahead of time that it is imperative, it is important. You let your children come to you, just like Jesus says. And I think he reprimanded the disciples. They're going, no, he's too busy. He's important. He's too busy. And he looked at them and he was a little disgusted, going, what are you doing? Those are the important ones. Let them come to me. Heaven belongs to those who are like these children. When you look at your daughter in the eyes where she says, Daddy, and she runs up to you, whether you're sitting down or standing up or in a crowd or whatever, make sure that you turn your head to her or to your boy and you look them in the eyes and you say, hi, son, hi, daughter, whatever their names are, and say, come here, and ignore everybody else around except for them for a few minutes, seconds or moments. Grab them in your arms. Make sure people around you know that you're proud of them, that you love them, and that you hug them and kiss them and ask them how they're doing and look them in the eyes. And then say, okay, Daddy's going to finish this right now. Do you want to stand here with me? Or do you want to go over there with Mommy for a few minutes while I finish up here? Sure, Daddy. Because they'll know that you saw them. Jesus saw them as the most important. Remember what I've told you. These things in their lives, these moments in their lives are going to transform them into the people they need to be, good, bad, and ugly. And I'm going to talk about that in one of my next episodes about a guy by the name of Josh. And he has single-handedly changed the world, though he built a team, but he was very hurt and very disappointed. and his father. It was a miracle that he came to God. We'll talk about that next time on Youth Worker on Fire.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.